Hi, everyone. Welcome back here to Techstrong TV. You know, this annually is one of my favorite Techstrong TV segments of the year. Mark it down. Hopefully next year we'll do it again. But every year, these two ladies come up here on Techstrong TV with me and give us our annual preview, insight, what's happening for RSAC Conference, as we call it. And so I'm really happy to invite them back on. I don't know how many years we're doing this, as long as I'm doing Techstrong TV. But let me introduce you to Britta Glade, who's the Senior VP Content and Communities for RSAC.
Great
and
to be
Linda,
here.
Hey, Britta. And then, of course, Linda Gray Martin, who Chief of Staff, RSAC, and Senior Vice President for RSAC. My power ladies. Linda and Britta, how are you?
We are good. We're so excited to be here. I can't believe RSAC 26 is in 1 month.
So if you're taking my feelings into account, move it back another month next year. It snuck up on me. It was Christmas and boom, it's RSAC already.
I know. Well, next year we're in early April and we will be for the subsequent. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's only really a week or so different, but I think mentally it feels different. So
a month is a whole different latitude. The month changes from March to April. It's a latitude, sort of like the Corona commercials, you know. But so that's good because it's sneaking up on us. I mean, I made all my plans, and I'm of course getting all of the inundated with requests for meetings and interviews and all of that stuff. But I just feel like I don't have enough time.
But it's the best. It's your people, right? I'm so excited
my people. They're
to see
coming.
our people, to see our community, the energy. So you get the shot in the arm a month earlier this time, Alan.
Absolutely.
Look at it that way.
A couple of weeks. Yes, we are. So I'm flying out Saturday, so I'll be there early and I'll be all ready to rock and roll for Monday and then all the way through Thursday again. But we've got a new theme this year.
We have.
Well, in many ways, we have a new RSAC this year, don't we?
We do. But let's talk about the theme first. So the power of community. So, I mean, we've had a variation on this theme for the last few years, but the reason being is because this is what it's all about. I mean, it is all about the people. And I think the kind of philosophy behind this year's theme is that how by uniting as a community, we can really affect change. And, ideas become breakthroughs when they're shared. And we see that at RSAC. We really do. So that's kind of what it's all about. And then, as we do each year, we have a little kind of saying or a quote. This year's one I love. It's an African proverb. And it says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That says it all.
Agreed.
I love it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Britta, what about you? What do you think about this?
The community that will be there. We were just talking about that shot in the arm. And I get so excited, my world that I live in with content and the communities, what are those communities? We have all kinds of closed door groups that meet, that we put meetings together for Fortune 1000 CISOs, fraud leaders, government leaders. The energy and excitement there, Alan, is amazing. I've seen the agendas. They look solid. Every single one of the programs is at a waitlist state. So we've got all these very senior folks who build their schedule around the week of RSAC. But then also, the content and all of these wonderful, wonderful, truly passionate experts from across our industry, from the community, that come together to conference, to deliver presentations, to help people learn all of this great expertise that we have that, really does drive into how do we apply and change what we're doing based on the threat landscape, based on new policies coming forward, based on AI that's changing, by the millisecond. So this power of the community for good has always been there for conference. I think in particular this year, you'll see it in spades across what's being delivered.
Yeah, because this year, Alan, did you know it's our 35th anniversary?
Yes, I did know.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm old, but I'm not that old. I haven't been there all 35 years.
We've been saying the same thing. We were not involved then.
Right. I was not there. Actually, this is probably my 25th, I think, maybe 26th.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but 25.
I just think it started in 1991. So I would say to anyone coming, watch out for some little 1991 and other 90s Easter eggs through the week. We are embracing the 90s. But it's
very cool.
Can you believe that the first RSAC was just one panel? It was one panel session.
Uh-huh.
You know what's awesome about that though? Sorry, Alan, is there are two individuals that I've seen from some of the footage of that first one panel who are still active participants. Bruce Schneier and Whit Diffie. Absolutely.
I know them both too. Very cool.
Exactly. These leading people in the industry. So we've talked about, all these new players, all this growth from that first, Linda, 50 people at the first one to over 43,000 folks last year. But that's the legacy that we are as conference. That's the passion that these people who early stage are still there. It's still important for them to have conversations. They still see this as where they want to deliver.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Britta. I didn't mean to jump in on you then, but I was getting excited because I've been speaking with Jim Bidzos, who, as you know, was involved in the very first one, and he's digging out some stuff from the archives for us. So we have a new area at the conference this year, Alan, called the Connection Hub, which is really designed to just bring people together, help people meet each other, exchange ideas, have great conversation, have a bit of fun because there's some fun elements in it. But within that space, we have a 35th kind of exhibit. So a tribute to RSAC through the years. And our team has been digging through our archives, trying to find old program guides and backpacks and all sorts. And Jim Bidzos is digging out some old press clippings from us right back from the first conference. So that's exciting. So you said, Britta, I just love the fact that those kind of founding fathers of the industry are still involved today.
Absolutely. We did something this week. We announced the Quantum Security 25 biggest thought leaders in quantum security. I've been doing some interviews with them. And of course, when you talk about quantum security, it becomes about cryptography, right? It comes post-quantum cryptography. And so a lot of it goes back to the original RSA work, right? The seminal work that established all of these things at RSA. And here we are 35 years later. Well, it's much later, RSA before that, but it's still fresh. It's still new. It's still evolving. The technology is still challenging. Speaking of challenging, it matters. Well, more than ever. More than ever, because the stakes are higher.
Absolutely.
Right? Think about it. It's, talking about new technology, we would be negligent if we didn't mention AI and its
two
role.
Little initials.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Nothing little about those two. But, in terms of previewing this year's agenda and this year's conference, how outsized, and I'm guessing it's an outsized role, is AI having?
Absolutely. And that's where I love, Alan, that we're recording this session today, because it's different today than it would have been yesterday. Even when you look at announcements happening, in the space, in and around AI and how things are changing. Mind you, it'll be different tomorrow, which will be different the next day and the next. But it's a really good question, and it's one that our program committee, as you know, RSA Conference, all of our content is determined by an expert program committee who looks carefully through almost 3,000 submissions this year to make selections and look at additional needs that we have. But there was a long conversation about how much AI content should there be. Are we tired of AI? Is there too much? And the reality is, AI is seeped into everything. So even if a session title doesn't lead with AI, we have a track that's called Intersection of AI and Security. Is everything AI on that? No, absolutely not, because pretty much everything, everywhere, all at once is AI, and it's changing how we look at things. As I look at, what sessions have people already signed up to attend, because reserve a seat, very important. If you're coming to conference, you have that opportunity. Take a look, plan your agenda. There's your public service announcement. But the things people are, signing up for and concerned about are in and around AI, not just AI from a technology standpoint or from a threat standpoint or from a how do we develop code, but also AI governance. How do you develop teams, identity, and such. So AI really is everywhere, and certainly figures also very prominently on our keynote stage, which Linda could talk about.
Linda, sounds like they threw the ball to you.
I know. I've just caught it. Thank you, Britta. So let's talk keynotes, because we change up the program every year, as you know. So from a main stage perspective, we will be kicking off with our very own Hugh Thompson, executive chairman. And then on day one, we have Vasuja Kaur from Microsoft. We have Jitu Patel from Cisco. We have Sandra Joyce from Google Cloud. And then first thing Tuesday morning, we have George Kurtz from CrowdStrike.
Sure.
And then we have the other kind of visionary leaders from our sponsor organization. So we're always thrilled to welcome them. But we also have some amazing guest speakers this year that I'd just like to quickly run through, if that's okay, because just excited about our program this year. So on the Tuesday, we have the Right Honourable Dame Jacinda Ardern keynoting, who I think everybody probably knows is the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. I am really excited to see her. She has a fascinating story.
She's an amazing woman.
Really going to be focusing on the empathetic leadership and managing through crisis that we all kind of came to know her for. So excited about that one. Yay.
Absolutely.
And then the Wednesday morning, another favorite, I think, with our audience, Adam Savage. Is best known for Mythbusters, also a kind of scientist and an educator. He's going to be talking about how a maker's mindset can shape and improve our work as cyber professionals. He wrote a really cool book called Every Tool is a Hammer. So he's going to be pulling out some of the main themes of that and applying them to our attendees, which is great. Also on Wednesday, we have Michael Lewis, amazing author, number one New York Times bestseller. I think most people know him from Moneyball and for The Big Short and others, but he is a very entertaining and obviously very smart guy who is renowned for seeing what a lot of other people miss and making complex worlds understandable, which I think we all need a bit of help with. So that's good. Obviously, a big shout out to our friends and partners over at SANS. They will be returning for their 5 Most Dangerous Attacks keynote, which is a firm fan favorite. Honestly, I think I don't even know how many years we've been doing it now off the top of my head, but it's many. And the reason we keep doing it is because people love it. And they're a great crew and a great partner. And then, Britta, do you want to talk a little bit about the closing celebration?
Who doesn't want to talk about Hugh Jackman, right? So 35th anniversary, we have to celebrate.
It is one of my wife's big. I've got to figure out how to get. She's coming Wednesday. Bonnie comes out. She'll be there Thursday. I've got to figure out how to get her in to see Hugh Jackman. But we'll talk.
Good news is, Alan,
we'll talk.
You got contacts.
Exactly, yeah. And passes. If you've got your RSAC badge, Mr. Jackman is there for you. So, Hugh Jackman, when we
he's not wearing the white dinner jacket from that movie with Nicole Kidman, is he?
Who knows? He might have some claws. He might have. 35th, how do you celebrate 35? Do you have someone who can sing? Do you have someone who inspires us as a superhero?
Check.
Do you have someone who's just an amazing human being, philanthropic work, very talented, cool accent, all in one person? So we try to, make sure that our keynote stage really inspires, but also that they're good people. We that's at the heart of any community is good people with good intention. And boy, we batted 1,000. on this one. And we are so excited for Hugh with Hugh, as well as some other fun special things. And there will be surprise and delight moments. So we can't, reveal all of those things now.
No, we don't want to give away all our secrets.
but
Any good magician knows that.
You will want to be in the room for that closing celebration.
You will want to.
Can't miss it.
I don't know. Have you guys seen Song Blue?
Yes. I haven't seen it. I must see it before the conference.
My daughter's actually in it, Alan. She's background. I can show you where Malin is in the scene, but yes,
congratulations to her.
Just an amazing, amazing person.
True story. Yeah, no, he does a great job in that.
True story. He is so good, and he's
really good.
He's doing those vocals himself. It's amazing.
I know. Well, he's an amazing song and dance man.
Absolutely, that was the start.
Speaking of amazing, good people, Jen Easterly, is she speaking?
Jen is part of the program. Linda, do you want to cover some of her areas?
I was going to say, you're going to be seeing her make an appearance in Hugh's keynote on the Monday, and she is actually going to be interviewing Jacinda Ardern, Dame Jacinda Ardern, I should say, which I think is going to be great. I think that's a perfect combination. So yeah, we're excited about that.
And we also actually have a late breaking. So as Linda discussed, we have the main stage keynote.
Wait for it. I need one of those alert things to go across the bottom.
Okay.
Late breaking news. Go ahead, Britta.
Yes, late breaking news. On the YBCA theater stage at 12:20 on Thursday, March 26th, Jen will be moderating a panel. This is a great, documentary that's been being worked on, Midnight in the War Room. Jen will be leading an amazing panel discussing the evolution of cyber war inside the making of Midnight in the War Room, which she's interviewed as part of that movie. She's worked with those folks, but this is one that you are not going to want to miss on the YBCA stage.
Also Thursday,
yeah.
I got to do a quick plug. Monday we do our DevSecOps seminar, as RSA calls it, but and the world of DevSecOps has changed. And this year we really focused on a lot of DevOps is now they're calling AI native dev.
Absolutely.
AI everything. And we again have invited back David Brin, who's a Hugo Nebula award-winning PhD from JPL on top of everything else. But he's written, and rumor has it, again, just rumor, he has a new book on AI lean, like alien AI life. We're going to have some pre-release copies available to people who come to our seminar.
Excellent.
And so if you're a big David Brin fan, and David is an AI futurist, he was writing about AI in the late 80s. So
interesting.
This is going to be a great session as well. And I think you'd have to go on the RSA website to look. I think he's speaking at 10:30 or something like that on Monday. Speaking of Monday, that's also Sandbox Day.
You're right.
Innovation Sandbox, absolutely. The 10 finalists have been announced. Yes, starting at 9:30 on Monday, and the winners are announced, right around 12:15. It's always a big fan favorite with lots of participation. Add that one to your agenda if you don't want to miss that session, because it always delivers, and it's always amazing to see where those companies are, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. It is arguably the biggest rainmaker of any event that happens here.
Absolutely. We're almost out of time. So let's circle all the way back to community. You mentioned 43,000, I think, last year or something, 40, just second year in a row. It's post-COVID, the numbers have bounced back nicely. For those out there, and, you get the full spectrum of security. They don't want to pay to go to San Francisco. It's the greatest thing in the world and everything in between. Where do people get community at RSA? Guys, we mentioned the hub. Is that what it's called?
The Connection Hub, yeah, that's a specific dedicated area. And I mean, we understand RSA conferences, or RSAC conference, sorry, Ben, is huge. And if you're there on your own for the first time, we can imagine, it is overwhelming, but hopefully it's also a place where you are going to make lifelong friends and connections. So if you are a first timer, if you're coming as part of our Loyalty Plus program as well, so if you've been there for up to 5 years, if this is your 5th, you qualify as Loyalty Plus. We're having a reception on the Sunday night to bring those two cohorts together, because I think there's a lot of learning and a lot of crossover between the two. So, I remember a couple of years ago, we had our very first timers and Loyalty Plus reception, and we had a pub trivia. It was like a pub trivia night. People loved it. They were at their tables, playing against each other. And by the end of it, I remember a couple of people had formed WhatsApp groups with their table mates, and they kept in touch for the whole conference. I mean, how brilliant is that? It was so good to hear about it. So, there are several of these kind of events and meetups and etc. during the week. We also run a Know Before You Go webcast. Off the top of my head, Brita, do you know the date? I think it's around the 12th of March. But that's a really good one to come to if you haven't been to RSAC before, just to get the lie of the land. Some other tips for people who haven't been before: try and make a plan. Try and spend a little bit of time before the conference, just going through the session agenda, going through the expo catalog. Just try and do a little bit of work. Like you said, you've already done some, which is amazing. You get a gold star. But we would definitely encourage people to do it, because it's like when you go to London or New York or somewhere for a trip, you want to make the most of every minute. And to do that, you're just going to have a much better experience if you make a plan. So
here's a shimmy assignment for you. Take your RSA schedule, upload it to your favorite AI, and ask it to make you an itinerary of what it thinks is the best. And then do your own and see. That's something to do. I mean, look, I am big into encouraging people. Don't be afraid of AI. Use AI. And I think that would be a great thing to do.
It would be interesting.
There we go. Yeah, AI.
I wonder what the AI thinks. Anyway, it's shaping up to be an amazing RSA, as it always is. It's not too late to get. There's different classes of tickets. There's Expo Plus and a couple of other things. But if you go, to the RSAC website, and Linda, you said it, maybe it confused some people. RSAC is the company, the organization that puts on the RSAC conference.
That's
as
correct.
I dropped my AirPod. The RSAC company, organization, exists throughout the year. They're about building community.
That's right. Yeah.
So back to that community word. RSAC conference is the main conference, or at least for now, that RSAC organization puts on.
That's correct.
So it's the RSAC conference. And that's why we're saying that. Did I get that right?
You got it.
Well, you did. I know it's a little bit confusing, but people call us many different things. But RSAC tends to be the shortened version that you hear the most, or that we'd like to hear the most. I will say, never say RSAC to Britta or I. You won't be allowed through the doors.
Well,
but,
anyone who says it's probably working. Well, I don't even want to go there. Ladies, it's so good to always see you. And I look forward to seeing you in person in just a couple weeks now, right? I fly, I think the 21st is my flight, something like that.
Wow.
We'll see you out there in San Francisco. I would say wear flowers in your hair, but I don't think flowers will go in my hair. But I do look forward. I'm looking forward to another just smashing RSAC.
Fingers crossed. We are looking forward to seeing you there. And also we're looking forward to seeing the community there, because like Britta and I said, that's what makes us excited. That's what makes us get up in the morning and come to work. Just,
it's the shot in the arm.
The shot
we
in
all
the
need.
arm.
Absolutely. That's what we need. Britta, Linda, it's so good seeing you.
You
I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Go check it. If you're not already registered, go do it now. Things fill up.
Come to the website and register. Reserve seats in the sessions.
If you want to get guaranteed a seat at one of the sessions that get really sold out, that pre-registration piece of it is important. While you're there, I forget what the word is. What do they do for our seminars? They don't pre-register. They express a interest.
Express an
or
interest.
Registered interest.
Right.
Yep.
In our, I forget the fancy name for it, but it's Securing AI Native Dev, part of our DevSecOps seminar on Monday. Ladies, I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you in San Francisco. This is Alan Schemmel for Techstrong TV. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Dr. Aqib Rashid, who is AI lead for Glasswall, and we're talking a little bit about, well, what happens when we apply AI to security operations, because sometimes things don't turn out the way we intended. Aqib, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Lovely to be on board.
So walk us through what's the problem here. I mean, honestly, we've been trying to automate security operations for as long as I can remember, and it's always been with some mixed success and some failures, and now we're throwing AI into the equation, and, well, what can go wrong? But the question is, what are you seeing out there? What are the challenges?
Yeah, sure. There's a number of challenges here, Mike. I think what AI has done is has just simply exploded those challenges. The scale has just shot up. It has increased, albeit exponentially. But the challenges have always been the same with this problem. What we're seeing is companies, organizations, enterprises, governments making use of AI, but then they're not quite too sure in terms of the more common things around security principles and trustworthiness of AI, and especially when you get into the agentic AI realm, where you have these very complex workflows at times, and they can be quite unpredictable at times in their behavior. And all of these components interacting together can often lead to some undesirable results. And we've seen quite a few of those recently in quite some large organizations as well. And for example, we can take the recent or semi-recent incident at Cloudflare back in November, I believe it was, where they had they had an ML-based system which was listening for some kind of component file or something like that, and because of a misaligned input or an input that was undesirable for the system, that update propagated through the ML-based system, and it had devastating consequences for the internet at large. You saw large websites go offline. You saw banks getting affected. You saw, flights being affected as well because of this problem. And this was simply because of, unvalidated inputs making it through into a production system when, you could have had better guardrails in place. So that's just one small example that I can think of off the top of my head.
Mhm. It seems like the challenge too with AI is that a lot of the things that we are dealing with in terms of the output from Gen AI specifically
Mhm.
are probabilistic. And I have a lot of workflows that are, shall we say, deterministic in the sense that they're supposed to be done the same way every time. And, well, Gen
Mm.
AI doesn't do the same thing the same way twice. So how do I kind of meld these two things together?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point there. I mean, with Gen AI, the inherent nature of it is that it's trying to be creative, it's trying to be generative, it's trying to um, expand your horizons and your knowledge as well with its generative and non-deterministic capabilities. And I think it all just comes down to validation, and it all comes down to good specification, and also it comes down to good prompting. So the entire end-to-end life cycle of deploying a Gen AI system or a Gen AI workflow for a particular problem, is pretty much the same. It's the same recipe as any other software engineering project or any other high stakes mission critical project where you would want to plan things as well as possible. But then in terms of actually deploying such a system, you'd want to ensure that you have those safeguards in place for ensuring it doesn't go rogue, so to speak. But then equally, you should be able to assess how it's going to respond with particular types of inputs way ahead of time. Before any kind of system like this reaches production, you'd want to do rigorous testing against this. The beauty of a probabilistic system, of course, is its predictive capability. It can, for example, in the concept of malware detection, for example, it might let you know about completely unknown and unseen threats that have not been captured in the wild at all, and it might give you an 80% probability or a 90% probability of that happening. But of course, that doesn't give you that kind of certainty, which we so often desire. So I think there's I think with AI and these agentic workflows, we are in dire need of just following the existing protocols that exist when you're trying to work with very high stakes mission critical systems where we need that kind of validation, robustness, and those kinds of checks in place.
Of course, a wise man once said, it's one thing to be wrong, it's another thing to be wrong at scale, and that's kind of the issue with AI. But what's your advice to folks about how to go about doing all this? I mean, because I think everybody's interested, but a lot of times I talk to people and they're like, well, the best people we have are the ones to do this, but they're too busy fighting fires to actually go automate anything. So, how do we kind of get to where we need to be?
Yeah, so I think it's partially an education thing. This is a new technology for a lot of people. I would certainly go down the route of educating users around the high level risks of this technology. So whether it be an LLM that you're interacting with, or a chatbot, or maybe it's an agentic workflow. We've seen a lot of recent developments in that area as well, and understanding what the common risks are there. So prompt injection attacks, data poisoning, understanding that you can't always trust the output, and that also speaks to the issue of probabilistic outputs versus non-deterministic outputs versus deterministic outputs. But then in terms of your so-called experts who are fighting those fires, I think it's on them as well to champion safe AI and trustworthy AI and promote the safe use of these technologies. So not only does that extend to educating the less AI savvy folk, but it also means that they should be working rigorously and tirelessly for ensuring that new kinds of models, new kinds of protocols, any kind of new technology stemming from this is used in safe and trustworthy ways. I wouldn't necessarily say in regulated ways. Regulation can sometimes come across negatively, but I think where there is common consensus among the AI community about what is right and what is wrong, that in itself is a form of regulation. It's almost like self-regulation at that point in time.
Mhm. Will it get easier to automate things? Because I think part of the problem historically is we had SOAR, which was a great idea, but I had to have a lot of programming expertise to kind of make that work. And if I have a more of a natural language interface, can I democratize the automation a little bit more and just let mere mortals kind of automate some things?
100%, Mike. The I think a lot of people who haven't delved too deeply in the agentic or the recent developments around agentic AI and workflows, and recent developments like OpenClaw and Claude Code and stuff like that will be, dare I say, pleasantly surprised. Some people might be unpleasantly surprised at the capabilities that technology now brings, where you can give it a task which might have taken a team of humans 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, but then it can knock it out in a matter of hours. And when you can run those kinds of tasks, or that kind of way of working in parallel, so you've got multiple agents or multiple AIs working on several different tasks, whether they are distinct or whether they are interrelated, that is a complete game changer here. So I think the simple answer is yes. Even for the lay person in the AI space, I think things are going to change quite considerably if they haven't already.
How do you think that will play out? Because I can imagine a world where everybody on the security team has their own AI agents, and then the organization probably has some AI agents that are assigned particular tasks and they're a little more
Mhm.
autonomous, shall we say. But won't these things have to kind of negotiate with each other? And who knows, maybe they'll even argue with each other. And how do I
Mhm.
kind of figure out what to uh, supervise here exactly? Because they won't they
Yeah.
just all call back to home, which is us, and ask for some
Yes.
resolution?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a very interesting point there. I think so there's a couple of things to unpack here. So of course, with this extended automation or this increase in autonomy comes the the increase in risk that is associated with it. So the risk of things going wrong, the risk of conflicts, as you're describing there. Additionally, the risk of moving too quickly and generating a lot of AI slop, which is a term that has been coined recently to describe outputs of AI which aren't very useful, but they appear to be somewhat useful in the short term, but long term they are just quite they're very difficult to maintain. It could be software, it could be copywriting, which doesn't quite make sense, or wherever it is. But when you're using AI like this in this kind of agentic fashion, you will of course get those conflicts where they are gonna require the human in the loop to make certain decisions. So I think the important thing here is to understand that these agents aren't completely autonomous, and they just shouldn't be used in that way. You always require that human supervision. And when they do inevitably call to home, you have to understand, what am I trying to achieve here? And if the AI agent or these AIs are setting out to do something which you're not trying to achieve, then I think that's a good place to pull up your handbrake and stop what they're trying to do.
To your point about that, it seems like, are we involved in some sort of AI arms race? Because everything you just described, I think the bad guys are probably doing the same thing with AI, right?
Oh yeah,
So, and
yeah, yeah.
is this all starting to be a battle that's being fought at such a level of speed that it's not really possible for humans to take care of it on their own without some help from AI?
We're absolutely in an AI arms race. I think it's a very interesting period that we're in. People are using AI for various reasons, some good, some bad, some extremely bad, unfortunately. Um, Different nations are also using AI against each other. You've got companies like Anthropic who've recently published some information around this topic as well. Um, when you apply AI to certain domains like cybersecurity, which are inherently adversarial, you always have those cat and mouse games in cybersecurity. You will find the good and bad actors. So where you have people using this technology for for defense, where you have people using this technology for the common good, you'll also have people trying to create malware with this technology. You'll have people trying to create spam emails or very sophisticated social engineering attacks with AI. um, Unfortunately, this is just a trend that we see of any kind of new technology. We saw this at the era, sorry, of the internet, at the dot-com bubble. When the internet, it has good things, it has bad things, and it's a similar pattern now that we're seeing with AI. The thing with AI, of course, is that the scale has completely changed as well. You can now do things at a far greater level than you could before. So the so-called blast radius is almost unchecked, and therefore you need people in positions of power and authority who know what they're talking about, who know what to do in certain situations, but also to build things in a responsible and safe manner as well.
Mhm. And the one thing that also comes to mind here is, like, let's say I'm the security team and I have built and deployed a bunch of AI agents. Don't they in themselves become a primary attack vector, because the bad guys are going to be like, hey, if I can get after those, well, that's the keys to the kingdom, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that is a trend that we are now seeing. We're seeing entire companies being spun up and getting a lot of VC capital, because of this problem of how do you go about securing your AI agents and your AI workflows, because they just become the attack vector at that point. And especially when those agents aren't necessarily calling to home, but are calling to other sources, or they're making calls on to the internet. Maybe they're pulling packages from GitHub or whatever it might be, and those sources become a little untrustworthy or compromised. That is an attack vector that we've seen pick up quite recently as well. But certainly, we'll see in the future as AI agents become more interwoven in the in the enterprise landscape, in the organizational landscape, then the attack vector will shift. Of course, it will shift from spam emails and injecting things into spaces which humans tend to delve in and occupy and read, into stuff that AI agents will occupy and read and consume. So it could be skills, MD files, it could be plugins for AI agents, it could be software packages, it could be a whole host of things.
Mhm. So as you kind of look at this, are we deploying AI agents faster than the security teams can keep pace with? And are we just kind of waiting for some sort of catastrophic event before everybody goes and addresses all these security issues that are going to require a lot more automation than we have in place today?
Well, I hope we don't. I hope we're not waiting for that. And certainly, the people I speak to and the organization that I work for, we're trying to get ahead of this problem. And like I said, there are entire companies now set up to deal with this problem of securing agentic AI and securing AI and the ramifications of bad and untrustworthy AI. I think the problem will get more pronounced because as the frontier AI labs and frontier AI companies inevitably release better models, inevitably release more features which make AI more accessible to people, what we'll see, of course, is that the risk will exponentially increase, and therefore the market size for solutions to solve this problem will also increase as well. And we'll see problems and risks that we probably haven't thought of before, simply because of the pace of change in this field. But uh, my strong feeling is that the community is working proactively to trying to remediate some of the known issues. Of course, there are always going to be issues which are kept by the adversaries as highly guarded secrets so that they can exploit at the right time. But about what we know around the common vulnerabilities that exist and common attack patterns that exist, work is being done to try and address those as much as possible.
Right. So right now, what's your best advice to your fellow cybersecurity folks out there about, how do I go have this conversation? Because sometimes they feel like, they're the people at the AI party telling everybody maybe not to drink so much punch, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to that original thing that I said at the beginning of our discussion, Mike. I think it's about trying to um, ensure that you're not letting any kind of AI system or agentic system run rogue on any kind of infrastructure. It's about ensuring you have those deterministic structural controls in place, just like you would have for any kind of IT system or software system or any kind of employee working at your organization, where you'd have proper controls in place to ensure that you only give access to information or tools or IP, which they absolutely need to have to function in their role. So it's a similar thing with AI as well. And where you are trying to deploy AI in a high consequence or high stakes or mission critical environment, increased oversight is going to be absolutely essential. It can't be the fact that you let this kind of technology run itself. That is just not going to work. And what we'll see, of course, is cybersecurity professionals, especially, becoming more accustomed to securing AI agents and securing agentic workflows, and trying to come to terms with the fact that not only do they have to deal with their with the humans who might raise support tickets and might raise issues, or attackers who are humans, but they'll soon have to deal with agents who might require certain permissions to do certain things, to achieve certain goals, but also agents who will try to infiltrate systems and attack systems and break them as well. And I think a large part of this is that education that I hinted at earlier as well.
Well, folks, you heard it here. Hey, the good news is it's going to be a lot easier to automate things using AI. The bad news is that more things than ever are going to be highly integrated because of AI. So when something goes wrong, it's going to go really wrong. Hey, Aqib, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Cheers.
All right. And back to you guys in the studio.
Hey everyone, welcome back here to Techstrong TV. You know, last week we had a moment here at Techstrong where, in partnership with our good friends at DigiCert, we released the initial Quantum Security 25 list, and we hope to make this a annual list over the next years. And it really was aimed at two things, as I was telling my next guest off camera. Number one, to shine a light on the whole quantum security field right now, right? For too long, we have kind of been kicking the can down the road when it comes to covering quantum, saying, yeah, it's 3 to 5 years out. Oh yeah, won't it be great when it finally comes? It's 3 to 5 years out. Well, my friends, I'm here to tell you the good news. You know, I don't know if it's 3 to 5 years out anymore. I think it's a lot more on the horizon, and there's real quantum or post-quantum security work being done now, as I think you're going to hear. Number two, you know, every movement needs its leaders, and we wanted to identify, some may say it's early, some not, but we wanted to identify 25 individuals who are have established themselves as leaders in this quantum security space. With that, let me introduce you to my next guest. He is one of these 25 established leaders in this space. His name is Dr. Michele Mosca. I hope I got it right. It's Italian for Michael. Dr. Mosca, welcome to Techstrong TV. It's great to have you on here.
Thanks, Alan. It's great to be here.
All right. So obviously it's doctor. I assume it's PhD. You are the co-founder, president, and CEO of a company called evolutionQ. But beyond the headline, right? Give people a little bit of your backstory.
My backstory? I mean, we can go way back. You know, grew up on a farm, but I was good at mathematics, and so when
I would imagine that helped. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was studying mathematics at Waterloo in the 90s, some of my mentors and academic advisors, they happened to be taking public key cryptography from an idea on a blackboard into a globally deployed standard. I really had no understanding what that really meant, but the math was fun, and I got to work with them on really testing the assumptions of our cryptography, how we were going to secure the internet, because it's secure as long as certain math problems are hard. So of course we're like, well, let's break these math problems, right? So I started off sort of as a code breaker, and that was fun. And then I got into Oxford to do some more, the mathematical studies underlying information security. And then I kept hearing about this quantum computing thing, and I thought it was dumb. And then I thought it was like ridiculous. And I didn't want to waste my time on it. But my advisor forced me to meet one of the pioneers of quantum information, actually. And then I realized, okay, they're not completely crazy. This will eventually work. And I like how you're describing it as 3 to 5 years away, because a good lead metric, I think, is we used to talk about quantum computing as being 20 to 50 years away. And then it's always 10 to 20 years away. Well, which one is it? And now it's 3 to 5 years away. So obviously, things are heating up. But so by serendipity in the 90s, I found myself at the interface of cryptography, which is part of cybersecurity, a fundamental pillar of securing the digital economy, and this new quantum computing thing. And I was one of the few translators between those two communities. and I was studying the power of quantum computing. So I had a lot of fun doing the fundamental mathematics underlying enabling quantum computers, using them, and protecting against them. And then I was recruited back to Canada to help start a quantum center within a cryptography group, and grew that into one of the largest sort of flagship quantum computing institutes that does foundations, applications, and implementations of quantum information processing, but always kind of true to my roots in cryptography and cybersecurity, which in the 90s was really honestly a niche. Like, who cared about code, breaking in the 90s?
Mm-hmm.
But, over the next 30 years, it's now a fundamental pillar of the global economy. So I found myself constantly, translating between these communities and telling people you need, what I knew is it takes decades, 2 to 3 decades to prepare new cryptography to be ready for showtime. So even 20 years away was cutting it close, right? But now, indeed, I think we're 5 to 10 years away with high likelihood. So fortunately, there's many people who, it was part of a rogue effort really to get ready for this quantum era at a time when everyone thought it was a ridiculous waste of time. And fortunately, we spent a few decades preparing so that by 2015, when the NSA in the United States and others said, no, we really got to get ready for this as soon as possible. Fortunately, we had a couple of decades or more of hard, thankless work to build on. And we're still working hard to get ready in time. But fortunately, we had those, extra years of preparation in advance.
I love it. The good folks at IBM are basically on a quantum by 28 or 29 or bust kind of thing, right? They've committed to delivering by then. I see you're being conservative, let's say.
Well, I think being realistic, right? You have to manage the tail distributions, right? And in cybersecurity, it's the one tail. Like, what if they are cryptographically relevant by 2031 or whatever? And you still have to. Some people have to manage the other tail, and because you're betting on these computers, creating extra value for your company by a certain date. Well, what if it's 5 years later, right? That's actually an easier tail to manage. Whereas if you're not ready for a cryptographic 0 day, you have a business continuity problem, right? Let alone all the old secrets. And that's sort of part of the core of the so-called Mosca equation that tried to remind people you can't wait till the threat is at the doorstep if it takes you 10 years to prepare. If it takes 10 years to prepare, you better start 10 years before. Good luck, because we don't know when that day is. So it really created a lot of uncertainty. So you have to also factor in your risk tolerance. And if you have long-term secrets, you got to start even earlier. So, and I certainly have no doubt my colleagues at IBM will continue to deliver on these amazing platforms. I don't think they're promising cryptographic relevance in 3 years, but I think they're promising, something far beyond what we currently have and potentially business useful in a small number of years. And cryptographic relevance, code breaking relevance will come in under 10 years is I think what they're very confident in. And there's a number of other players who are similarly confident.
Let's segue into evolutionQ. What's that about?
Yeah, so with my academic career and so on, I was really good at telling other people what they had to do, and they usually ignored it. But occasionally, you'd get people saying, "You know what? I think you have a point. We need to do something." And there's all preparation, all about risk management ultimately. Like, don't stop everything else you're doing, but you gotta invest a little bit into being ready, right? You can't only do firefighting. There has to be a little bit of fire prevention, or the fires will become unmanageable. And occasionally I'd get some people saying, you know what, you're right. What should I do? And that prompted me, for example, about 15 years ago to start an open source platform for post-quantum algorithms. Because I had the first company saying, you're right. Our clients do want their information to be secure long-term. What should I do? And I wasn't ready for somebody to actually believe me and want to act on it. I was mentally ready, but I realized, well, you know what? You don't have the platforms for doing that. So I started an open source platform. What happened, probably what drove me to start the company So I've been doing consulting for industry and government since the 90s. Is the CIO of Canada asked to meet her in Ottawa. So I went. I didn't really know what she was going to ask me. And she said, look, I know who you are. I know what you've done. What should I do? I was like, well, I started asking her some questions. And I said, okay, so my team is going to come together with your team, and we're going to do this pilot we just discussed, a short-term thing, because I wasn't looking for some never-ending consulting gig. I really wanted to get to the point, to the heart of the matter, and be able to, create resilience for the Canadian government. So then I had to, when I left her office, I said, now I have to build that team. So I started going to, I've been engaging with the industry for decades. So I had friends and started putting together a team to offer professional services to help people understand, but what does this quantum threat mean to me? What should I do about it? What's my roadmap? And it was about, we wanted to build products, but we needed to know what products people really needed, right? And a lot of things they needed, there's other people better suited to deliver, right? So we wanted to get the ecosystem moving in that direction early while there's still time before it's a panic. And about 2020, we realized the product gap, which is really about enabling scalable cryptographic resilience. And that was really exciting. And so we've been developing the software frameworks, not just the framework, the actual tools, which are deployed all around the world to enable scalable cryptographic resilience. So that's really what evolutionQ is all about. Very pragmatically, managing your cryptographic risk, bringing it down to an acceptable level by enabling scalable software solutions.
I love it.
Yeah.
In this field, security is usually a laggard, right? Not in this field, in general, right? Security, even like in AI right now, right? We're seeing security its usual place in the caboose of the train, right? We're running as fast as we can, and then someone says, "Oh,
Yeah.
what about securing it? Is this secure?"
Yeah.
With quantum, and one of the things that I think I like about what's going on there is security seems to be out front and center, right? Some of the biggest breakthroughs, some of the most real technology that we're seeing right now is around quantum cryptography, or let's call it post-quantum cryptography, around quantum proof algorithms, right? As you mentioned, NSA, NIST, MITRE, they got out ahead. They partnered with industry, and we've had post-quantum algorithms available for, some of our digital certificates and stuff now for a little while. And by the time Q Day does come, we there's no excuse why we shouldn't be prepared from a security point of view. That's refreshing, right? That's not the usual, as you probably know.
Yeah. So there's hope for humanity, right?
Yeah,
and I
maybe.
Think, this is, we shouldn't be bitter about this fact because it's been like that for millennia. It's part of human nature. But we do need to get smarter about how we subvert the usual market forces, how we internalize, because this is real. Like these expected losses due to not being ready for emerging threats, that's real, economically real, but it's not in our short-term calculus in most cases. So how do you internalize that so we properly manage those risks? We don't over invest because we have a lot of other things we need to be protecting against and seizing opportunities. But if we underinvest, then obviously it could be an unrecoverable event. So what's different over the last many millennia is the hyper concentration and this hyper scale. When weaponized, it means, a hyper problem, right? And you can't wait for the problems to start and say, oh, this is bad, because they're not going to be slow and incremental. It could be a rapid game over event. So you do have to architect for resilience versus just security gets what you know. And we've been doing it like MFA. That's essentially a defense in depth approach, realizing we're not going to make passwords perfect. We're not going to make humans smarter. Like we're not going to get, one layer of defense isn't going to be enough. We have to be ready for an unexpected break. It'll be bad, but we'll detect, recover, and move on. So we've done this, like we know how to create resilience, right? Through diversity, defense in depth and agility. even in non-technical domains. But obviously in cryptography, it's the same thing, right? So how do you create that market pull for what we know we need? Well, step one is awareness, right? And that's what a few souls, and many of them are on your awardee list. So it's been a pleasure to work with them over the last few decades and to create the awareness. That's what the whole Mosca inequality is about, is a really simple way of articulating this risk and then making it easier. How do I make it easier for people to take actions, both in terms of knowing what actions to take and then technologically making it easier? That's why we did the open source, which is now part of this effort involving MITRE and others that you mentioned. And now, slowly the incentives are occurring with the guidance, the NSA announcements and the cryptologic authorities, standards bodies, that further reduces the friction and increases the impetus. Because of course, people don't change their behavior because they see the light, they change their behavior because they feel the heat. So, the regulatory framework's either here or coming. Now, this is a board level issue, right? So maybe we do need to get ahead of it. So I'm hoping, so first of all, this is a blessing in disguise. This quantum threat is not a bad thing. It was, without it, we'd be in a much more precarious situation, because normally 0 days don't get announced 30, 40 years in advance, right? And so it really shined a light on this fragility in our digital economy, that there'd have been people like me saying, hey, there's this fragility, and nobody would have cared. But because quantum is a real thing, slow moving, but real, it forced us to address this fragility. And we have a fighting chance to create, a resilient cryptographic foundation. If it weren't for the quantum threat announced decades in advance, this fragility would be baked in even deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where we really have no chance of recovering from it. So I think it's a blessing in disguise in terms of enabling cryptographic resilience, but it's also a wake-up call. Where are the other fragilities like this one, where we're kind of all letting the short-term market forces get the better of us, right? And we're seeing it obviously with supply chains, with critical minerals. Like, that was an own goal, right? And there's other own goals like that. What are the other ones where, can we borrow from the quantum safe playbook? Like, how did these quantum safe people get ahead of this, right? And have some other, examples where we can create resilience where we currently are living with fragility.
Agreed. Excellent. Dr. Mosca, as I said, it's a 15-minute interview. We're probably a little over time already, but let me ask, for people who maybe want to follow you, follow what's going on at evolutionQ, follow this space, right? Because the space is still new enough where, when I first got on the web, you were in school. Yahoo was a gray page. I'll never forget. It was gray, and it had Yahoo in purple. And it was a couple of pages. There weren't that many websites, you know what I mean? And we're almost at that stage here. When we look at quantum, we could still you could still keep your thumb on the pulse. How would you recommend people do that, though?
Well, there's also, you can follow evolutionQ on LinkedIn and so on. And the other, there's a few fora where I think there's really credible, authoritative guidance at different technical levels. There's the Canadian Forum for Digital Infrastructure Resilience, Quantum Readiness Working Group. Mm-hmm. It's a mouthful, but if you search it up, you'll see every year we've been, for the last 5-6 years, publishing best practices. RSAC does nice work, publishing best practices, and the Canadian, the Quantum Safe Financial Forum, led by Europol, provides some. These are many different stakeholders coming together and articulating some useful new guidance and findings. So there's examples like that, which I think can provide a different array of trusted guidance. And they're not trying to sell you anything. You do need to buy stuff, but so there's many other, credible vendors out there as well. But the 3 examples I just gave are sort of kind of team efforts across the globe. So those are some examples of where to get some good trusted guidance.
I love it. Listen, congratulations on being a member of the inaugural Quantum Security 25 list. Through the year, we're going to tap back in and hear what's going on and kind of get your views. We're working on a steady kind of updates here with the 25 people so that hopefully we can become a resource from a tech media perspective. We're not a government agency or a vendor selling anything, quite frankly. But we do think as the audience and community for this develops, we'd like to be a place people can come and gather and, read information from all across the world. So we'll be in touch with you. Again, congratulations. Dr. Michele Mosca, yes? Did I say it right?
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks.
Dr. Michele
Thanks.
Mosca.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this, because like I said, awareness is really a critical piece, and recognizing a lot people who've honestly done a lot of the thankless work is really valuable. So thanks for your important contribution here.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a break on Techstrong TV. We'll be back here in just a moment.
Welcome to Reality Check. I'm Dave Nicholson, Chief Advisor and Senior Fellow at Futurum. This show's going to be a little bit different than other things you see in kind of the tech sector on the interwebs. We're not going to be necessarily talking to vendors in the world of IT. We want to talk to actual practitioners and decision makers, from the frontline senior engineering folks through C-level executives who are making serious decisions about how they deploy resources. I have the pleasure of working as an instructor and success coach in University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School executive education programs. One of those programs is a CTO accreditation program. And in that program, we talk about something we call the CTO mindset. And it's this idea that someone in a modern organization has to take responsibility for leveraging the best that technology has to offer in the marketplace in service of the mission of the organization. And that takes all sorts of shapes. The first challenge that these folks have is balancing running the business and changing the business, innovating versus keeping the lights on, with a finite set of resources and sort of infinite demands on their shoulders. So a lot of the folks we'll be talking to in this series are being asked the question regularly from their board of directors or from their C-suite. What are we doing to leverage AI? What are we doing to make money and save money with AI? These conversations are going to be with folks who have to make meaningful decisions about this. Money is on the line. Their jobs are on the line. So these are not ethereal discussions about what could happen, what might happen. These are discussions about what these folks are actually doing. We have someone who's become a friend of mine, very special guest, Oleg Dulin. He is one of these folks who's at the tip of the spear. He is both learning about and teaching about AI at the same time, helping to drive value in the organizations he's associated with. And we're going to talk about some of those things, what he's seeing on the real front lines of AI and IT today. It's important to understand that guests of this program are representing themselves and themselves only. They will all be very accomplished professionals in their own right. They are not here to represent any thoughts or opinions or internal activities at any future, past, or present employer. So keep that in mind, to the point where when Oleg and I talk about things in specifics, if we say something like AWS or GCP, we're speaking in generalities, which we'll use those as proxies for hyperscale cloud providers. We may say ChatGPT as a proxy for a large language model, as an example. So don't infer anything. What we're talking about is things in generality. So Oleg, let's get to it.
Hi,
Welcome.
Dave. Hey,
Welcome to Reality Check, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a reality check.
thank you, Dave, for inviting me. This is a great honor. I love it. I love the idea.
So I want to jump right in. What are you thinking about every day in both your personal and professional worlds? What are the things about AI that you see as the kind of low-hanging fruit for delivering value, the lowest risk, highest reward sort of things that you can do?
I think for all the talk about using AI to deliver something to consumers and customers, right? All that pressure, I think an enormous gain can be had in changing how we work. And it's easier than trying to think of new features. So in my specific profession, AI-based software development lifecycle is something that I'm deeply passionate about. And Dave, you and I were talking about this stuff a year ago. A year ago, I was skeptical. I was one of those people who were skeptical, and I still don't think vibe coding is some panacea. But I do think these tools in the hands of skilled professionals are enormous force multipliers. I'm adapting Claude Code for my team. I'm using Codex for personal projects, and I'm amazed at the creativity that's unleashed by those tools. It's incredible.
So would you say that your views are shaped by your personal use of these tools? In other words, you gain a certain facility, and that makes you comfortable then thinking, "Wow, this is something I can leverage within my organization"?
I think both feed into each other. The way I am, I don't stop thinking about my profession. I've been doing this since I was a teen. I always think I can't tell with certainty what feeds into what, but the necessity came from my professional life. How do we accelerate productivity? How do we accelerate innovation? How do we reduce friction between each other, between developers? How do we democratize access to information, to knowledge, right? And then, having seen what I can, I just to keep my mind sharp. If I'm using Claude Code at work, I'm using Codex for personal experiments. So I have both sides of it. I did try others like Copilot and Q, and
Okay.
yeah.
And so for whatever reason, you've selected tools that not to get on the vibe coding train, but that you vibed with.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I think, like in my case, I'm old school. I mean, I'm gonna age myself. I mean, I started my career as a Unix admin in my college in the 90s. I'm happy with the terminal, and I love my IDE. I use IntelliJ, but the terminal is where I want to live. And Claude, Anthropic, I think they nailed it with the terminal interface. Codex is similar. I think Amazon Q is like that too. It came maybe as an afterthought, but as developers, we tend to be on the keyboard. We're not moving mice around. So having that access, and the more you start using it, you start using this tool, and you have ID on the side. But there does come a point when you trust the tool enough that all you have is just that terminal, maybe a few terminal windows.
Okay, so when a company is creating something to be used by folks like you, they'll have 10 or 20 things that they think are really, really special and compelling. For you in sort of the broad area of software development lifecycle, can you think of a thing or two that really made you a believer in the sense that, okay, there's some value here? What would those things be? What is like lowest common denominator capability that you absolutely are confident can improve the lives of developers and bring all sorts of goodness? What are those foundational things, or what's that first thing that kind of hooked you?
So there was a there was a point when those tools could not ingest a large project. They couldn't handle it. They typically worked on one file at a time, maybe one directory at a time, and I was not impressed with that. It felt okay for small projects, but it wasn't enough for a large enterprise application, right? Recently, they became powerful enough that they can handle a large repository with a large code base. I think that was the unlock for most of us, actually. And then the ability to review the code. Obviously, that's always there, but also to have a mode of execution where I can automate it, where I can let it run unsupervised in CI/CD pipeline, in automation, and integrated into my other tools that I already have, right? Like have a Claude code based coworker that lives in Slack. That was also a huge unlock. Ability to integrate it into our existing tool chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, so I should remind the folks that are with us today that when I go back to this idea of the CTO mindset and the running the business, changing the business, Oleg spends a lot of his time on the innovation side of things, specifically in figuring out how to chart a path forward. And with that in mind, Oleg, I want to ask you a question that I've been asked by folks in the media as we go into 2026, and it's a question about SaaS in general. So think of the big SaaS providers that are out there. The way the question gets asked is, how will AI affect those SaaS providers? And the theory is that, well, maybe what happens is people realize that they can use these AI tools to create facsimiles of the software as a service that they're running, and maybe save money by just running their own stack that they've created out of whole cloth. The argument against that, which I make, frankly, but I really want to hear your point, is that in fact, I think a lot of businesses, enterprises that don't have someone as forward looking as you are embedded in the organization, I think that they're going to be more risk averse, and they're actually going to be likely to turn to these SaaS providers and ask them to figure out how to integrate AI. So again, in the hypothetical example world, take something coming out of Oracle, Salesforce, ServiceNow, et cetera. I believe, but I want to hear your perspective, that companies are going to say, hey, ServiceNow, I love that you have this agreement with OpenAI because I don't want to have to figure that out. We leverage you, ServiceNow, as a partner, or Salesforce. I want you to figure it out for us. Bring us the AI goodness. You go ahead and do all the experiments and make all the mistakes, because I don't want to do that here. What is your thought there? Are you set up in a way that that makes you want to experiment on your own, or do you feel more comfortable leaning on like SaaS providers or hyperscale cloud providers to have them do the due diligence and only bring you vetted solutions? What are your thoughts about that?
I think there are two parts to what you were saying, as I see it, right? One is SaaS and facsimile copies of products, right? So I definitely think that there is pressure on SaaS. In my experiments that I do, for personal amusement, one can take ChatGPT deep research and dig up user stories on a product, and then with some manipulation feed that into Claude Code or Codex, and with some prompting and customization, they can stand up something that's very close to an existing product, right? So
hold on. When you say close to an existing product, I mean, I'm thinking about an SAP landscape, or
right.
a Salesforce. I mean, these platforms. I guess it's going to vary based on the SaaS application. How?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it definitely varies based on the SaaS. But what I was going to say is, and you mentioned platforms, right? So the application itself, the product itself, I feel is no longer competitive mode, but the platform is, because people trust SAP to have a reliable platform. The software they use is probably disposable at this point. Given a platform, now anybody can stand up just about anything. You can stand up point of sale. You can stand up, CRM. If you have an underlying platform to work with, right? So I think that's where the pressure is going to be, and I can't really predict how it's going to play out, but you can definitely see pressure on SaaS companies in that regard to become platforms.
Okay, so it's not eliminating the platform, but it's eliminating some of
Right.
the
Right.
like products that
And
plug into the platform.
right, and the platform is where the trust is too. If you trust a bank to run payments, right, you're not gonna start. You're not gonna vibe code a bank, and payments infrastructure. You're not gonna vibe code EasyPass. Or a complex ERP system. It's not even worth it. It just becomes a building block in whatever new innovative thing you want to build, right? So, and that's the whole purpose of platforms. The purpose of platforms is to serve innovation, is to allow others to build something you don't even know is possible, right? So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, so let's talk about that kind of that innovation process. This isn't just you deciding a direction that things are going to go. You and I are both veterans of the move to cloud era,
Mm.
right? So we understand what it means to technically move things from on premises to the cloud. And we understand that often those efforts fail not because of the technology, but because of the organizational challenges that arise. If you don't address those organizational challenges, no technology is going to save you. So as you're moving through this world now, what are you seeing? What are you seeing that is necessary to get people to come along for the ride? How important is it for people to be able to bring their own ideas about tooling to work, as an example?
I think it is important. So, if we're talking about AI tools that software engineers use,
Yeah.
I see this as a similar pattern as what I've seen in my career at big companies, right? So we went through a phase where open source was a taboo. You could not bring open source, into your workplace, right? Eventually, the pressure to deliver and build competitive software, outweighed the cost of regulating it, right? And the trust in open source, with all the scanning tools and stuff like that, increased. There were efforts to standardize integrated development environments. I don't think we're there yet with AI development toolchain to say that this is the tool that everyone should standardize on. I don't support forcing that. I think it should be on a team by team basis. Let them try, let them see what sticks, and be flexible enough to change. It's you and I were talking before. There might be similarities. You mentioned cloud. There might be similarities in how AI tools are replacing developers. I see it in the same way that AWS replaced IT. On-prem IT. It's the same way. These tools are putting power in the hands of people who are actually building things. They're multiplying their productivity. And we're just not there yet to say which one wins right now. Claude Code is popular. 6 months from now, who knows, right? So that's my
Yeah.
view.
Let me torture an analogy here and tell me what you think about this.
Uh,
Um, I grew up at a time when if you wanted to take a trip, any trip, but let's say a significant vacation, you might go to a travel agent to get your tickets taken care of. There were things called travel agents. Now, of course, there are still travel agents and travel agencies, but largely we now just go in. You don't have to be a travel agent to book travel. Seems
Right.
ridiculous.
Right.
How far are we from the point where creating code doesn't require code writers or developers, where someone like me who loves my trackpad, loves my mouse, has never adopted CLI for anything in my career, frankly. I started out in the Apple universe, and so never met a GUI I didn't like. Um, is it realistic when these companies are talking about things like vibe coding? You said you kind of, you're lukewarm on this idea of vibe coding. Are we being unrealistic about that? I mean, are these really tools that supercharge developers, or are they tools that replace developers? How would you compare those two things?
I think there are some tools that where for simple things they may be replacing developers, but I don't really see it quite there yet. I have like a test project set up on my personal laptop where I'm exploring these things, right? So to build a meaningful system, in this case, okay, I'm trying to set up a membership management platform for my synagogue to see if I can do it, right? I sit on the board at the Shammett Memorial Temple in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and they say they spend thousands of dollars a year for a SaaS that I don't want to mention because I don't want to get in trouble, but but they, it's financial pressure. So I thought, okay, let me see if I can stand it up. Okay, so my first attempt to stand it up resulted in something that I would say is unmaintainable. It was easy enough to demo and showcase, but I would not put that in production. So then I started over, and here I am. I'm guiding codecs to set up, to organize code in a certain way, to set up CloudFormation templates for AWS. I'm telling it to use AWS Dynamo. I'm telling it to use AWS Cognito. I have to know these things, right? So, the setup I have is roughly comparable to having like 5 people working for me, where I have, cloud engineer agent, I have, a developer agent set up. But I still have to, basically, in fact, I told them in my agents MD file that I'm the CTO. Okay, I have to act as a CTO, guiding their decisions, right? So I don't think we're there yet, but I think developers need to step up. They need to become more architects, more systems thinkers, because this skill of coding, the low level, intricacies of programming languages and things like that, I think that archetype of an engineer is fading. And the difference is going to be difference between people who just want to code for the sake of coding versus people who want to build things, right? And building things doesn't necessarily mean that you understand some low level intricacies. Now, is it possible that like as I'm building this toy project on the side, is it possible that at some point in the near future we may get to the point where I wouldn't have to think about CloudFormation and Dynamo and Cognito and having that knowledge about AWS tools? That's what I would like to see. Even in my setup, I told it whenever you mention, I learned it from you, Dave, whenever you mention an AWS service, I don't want to know what it is. Just put in parentheses and tell me what it's for, right? So I want to get to that point, and maybe we never will, because of the innovation in that space, there will always be some new. But there will be, there are tools like Replit now, where you can build a simple app and stand it up, So maybe those tools just become more sophisticated, But for big complex applications, I don't see it yet. And then the other thing is, don't forget, the world runs on, like American Express and on COBOL, right? On legacy software. We're not there yet, and I don't I don't know. Maybe I'll be proven wrong in a year, but
well, in all things tech, the end state is much like what we call the vanishing point on a desert highway, where
right.
the vanishing point is where the two sides of the highway meet in the
Right.
distance, at least as far as you're concerned. And the closer you get to it, the further it gets away.
Yeah.
The last, what is it? The last mainframe the last VM will be decommissioned the day after the last SAN is unplugged, and that'll be a week after the last mainframe is
Right.
unplugged.
Right.
And so these are, but so what you're seeing in both your professional life and your personal life is a progression towards the ability to leverage these tools to definitely save money. I mean,
Yes.
would you say that an enterprise organization that isn't actively pursuing the use of AI in the software development lifecycle is going to be at a serious disadvantage moving forward?
Yeah. I think I still hear from my peers in other companies, I hear, phrases like we're piloting, we're doing POC.
Yeah.
I think 2026 is not the year for that. If you're still talking about piloting this or that, you are behind.
Okay.
And it's going to be interesting what happens. Does it unlock productivity, or does it reduce the need for as many people? And I think a lot of that.
Yeah. Who do you who do you turn to as trusted advisors in this space? Do you, I've argued that from an IT decision maker perspective, there aren't more seats at the strategic table. Maybe there are fewer, and most large entities want to deal with fewer vendors / partners, if you allow them to call themselves that. So you figure you probably have a hyperscaler or two that's kind of at the table. Maybe a large global systems integrator has some sort of influence. And then there are all of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of point solutions. And of course, we have the rise of the large language model purveyors. Who of your sort of what I would call legacy partners in IT do you trust or do you turn to? Not by names, but by categories. I mean, do you think that hyperscalers are working really hard to benefit you with these tools? Do you think they're falling behind? What are your thoughts?
I think they're falling behind. I don't want to mention names,
Okay. How so?
yeah,
In what regard?
I do think I think they are falling behind. I mean, you have Anthropic, who, I mean, they from what I understand, they run on AWS, but they're the ones innovating, but you don't get the same level of innovation, the same passion coming from more traditional hyperscalers.
Well, is it because they have to be the adults in the room, though? I mean, if it's one thing to go out and go, "Whoa, look how cool this stuff is." It's another thing to say, "Well, hold on a second. It has to integrate with 100 systems on the back end, otherwise everything gets screwed up."
Right.
So, I mean, is there some of that? Again, I think it's deliciously ironic that that we get to refer to hyperscale cloud providers as legacy IT.
Right.
I think it's awesome. I love it because it was yesterday that they were telling me I was a grandpa, and so, I mean, to be fair, is it a little bit of that they have to just, they have tighter constraints, or do you think that they just don't get it? Are they resting on their laurels? Do you think an Anthropic is going to meaningfully displace a GCP, an Azure, or an AWS, or are they going to sort of drift into the background over time, and you'll get that value from the cloud provider?
I mean, in terms of AI, the software development tools, I mean, we've seen this. I mean, Linux supplanted, Microsoft. I wouldn't put it past them. Um, uh, it, I mean, I also wouldn't put past established players, to do something similar. But this is what I think about. At Anthropic, everybody is using Claude Code to build Claude Code. right? Can the same be said about competitors? Are they companies promoting these products? Are they also using them for their own work? And I don't necessarily mean just the tool building the tools themselves. Are they applying them to? Are they eating their own dog food? And I don't know the answer. But the developer community passion over Claude Code does have to do with their community presence and the fact that they're all using it.
Okay, interesting. So you do see a parallel between, say, Linux. Now, of course, I would argue that Microsoft's doing a bit better than Red Hat at this point. So
but you got. I mean, your Mac is a Unix machine. Android. Maybe individual companies like Red Hat aren't doing particularly well, but there are billions of devices out there that are running some open source version of Unix now.
Well, Oleg, as we get ready to wrap, talk to me about some of what you would think of as kind of the human considerations, in terms of how we move forward with this. How do teams manage to move forward and leverage AI, specifically in the software development lifecycle, to save money for companies? What does that look like?
I think there is a definitely human aspect. I see it. I see experienced people who take advantage of AI tools and become 5 times more productive, and then I see a younger generation who adopt the tools and become a lot more productive. But then somewhere in between, there are people who need help and who need upskilling, and for us as leaders to drive adoption and improve productivity, we have to come up with a plan to teach everybody how to use these tools. And it's a skill in and of itself. It's not, you don't go to Claude Code and say, in 5 words, do my work for the rest of the day. It will do something, but it's not going to do what you want. You have to sit there and you have to coax it to do something. And I compare it. I tell my friends that if you want to learn how to use these tools effectively, go to therapy and pay attention how a therapist talks to you. Because that's exactly what it's like. You sit there as a therapist and you are guiding the patient to come up with its own solutions to its own problems, basically. So this upskilling aspect is complex, and then who is responsible, right? I saw somewhere that in some companies the role of a CTO and CHRO are combining because of this, and I don't necessarily see like that as an advantage.
Into a single robot. Is that what it is? The CTO and the person, the CHRO are both being asked to leave, and a robot is coming in and replacing the two of them.
Yeah. Well, there is I think I saw somewhere on LinkedIn. Basically, a CTO for their area of responsibility, or a chief architect on a project, right? Which is a CTO-like role. They have to think about the human aspect, the organizational aspect of these tools. How does it impact the team structure? How does it impact, authority structure and responsibilities and accountability, right? What does reporting structure even look like? If everybody on the team have access to all the SME knowledge that AI has access to, what does it even mean if everyone is on a more or less equal footing? What does it mean to team structures? So it's all something that I think about, and we should all be thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so final question. Little bit of a curveball. What makes you cringe when you hear when you hear in the AI media something being said, or when a purveyor of AI stuff makes a comment? What are the kinds of things that make you cringe and just shake your head like, that's ridiculous? Don't tell me that again. Don't say that to me again, because it's not real. Can you think of anything?
I honestly, they all make me cringe sometimes. I don't have anything. Well, predictions that these tools are going to replace humans. That's what makes me cringe. It's uh, I've seen this all. It happens all the time. In our industry, the day the first compiler was invented, I'm sure people were thinking that it's going to replace all the coders who were sitting there, punching cards and stuff like that. I think these tools are elevating the work we do. They're unleashing creativity. I don't see them replacing humans anytime soon. And these pronouncements by leaders from AI companies, they sound to me like a sci-fi fantasy right now. Again, I could be proven wrong in a year, and it's okay.
Yeah, you could be replaced by AI within a year.
Yeah.
Once Common Crawl gets a hold of this
Oh,
podcast.
that's what we're wasting our data center resources on now. Like that, is that what we're doing now?
Right.
That makes me cringe. That is, yeah.
Oleg, if you feed the machine enough garbage, diamonds will be the
Right.
result.
That's right.
Obviously. Well, Oleg
Right.
Dulin, thank you so much. This kind of
Thank
blew
you, Dave.
by. The best, I would highly recommend folks go on LinkedIn and look up Oleg Dulin, Dulin. He's been pretty prolific in 2026, talking about the things that he is thinking about and working on. And again, he's one of these folks that's actually out there doing it. He's not shilling for, nothing wrong with shilling, but he's not shilling for someone selling solutions. He's actually out there trying to decide, what do we spend our money on? How do we get our value out of it? And he's just an all-around interesting guy. Oleg, thanks again for being here. I'm Dave Nicholson. This is and has been a reality check. Stay tuned for further installments.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel at Techstrong again. Hey, for this next session, we call it Agents plus Apps plus Chat. It features Richard Riley, who's GM of the Power Platform Marketing at Microsoft, as well as our own Futurum analyst, Diane Hinchcliffe. Diane and Richard will build upon the foundational vision of Agents plus Apps plus Chat, creating a solution-oriented view into the heart of agentic business transformation. In this session, you're going to learn how agents are enhancing workflows and redefining the architecture of business value today. You're going to hear about practical applications for agents in terms of UI, logic layer, and decision engines across business functions, everything from finance to HR to sales, and even customer service. I think you're going to enjoy it. Here's Richard and Diane.
Thanks, Alan. This is Diane Hinchcliffe, VP and practice lead for our Chief Information Officer research group, and I'm with the Futurum group. I'm here with Richard. Richard, can you give us an introduction?
My name's Richard Riley. I lead the low-code go-to-market team at Microsoft. So that covers all of our low-code portfolio, Power Apps, Power Automate, and includes Copilot Studio, our agent building platform.
Well, it's great to have you, Richard. And what's interesting, the CIOs I talk with, they're undergoing all these changes with AI, and now Agentic has arrived. And they're under this realization that they are going to have to transform their organizations using AI agents. And so I was wondering, to help them understand this, how do you define agentic business transformation that goes beyond just mere automation and is really explains kind of why it's a new paradigm?
Well, I think agents can do lots of things. We tend to think of them existing on this kind of spectrum. So you can have very simple agents on one side of the spectrum and very complex agents on the other. So to give you a bit of an example there, I would say on the left side, on the simple side, we kind of say agents that just do regular Q&A. They're grounded on a few documents. You ask them a few questions and they can give you answers. They're super useful in certain situations. And then on the right-hand side, you've kind of got things like autonomous agents that they can work off triggers, they can run business processes, they can literally work autonomously. and have very complex logic, complex instructions, and run very complex business processes. So, and then you've got everything in between. So we kind of think it really depends on who's asking the question and what they're asking, the context they're asking the question in. But it's helpful to think about these as a spectrum of things versus an agent is just the same agent.
We appear to be on the cusp of a massive wave of agentic solutions. Some are narrow, some are broad, and some are open source. What makes Microsoft's approach defensible and distinctive in the flood of agent frameworks and offerings that we're seeing show up?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'd probably start with the breadth of tooling that we've got. We kind of span from the very easy to use experiences that are built into M365 Copilot with Copilot Lite. You can literally describe an agent that you want. You can give it some grounding content. You can tell it to go talk to SharePoint and a bunch of other kind of content sources. Super easy to do, super easy to share. Very valuable. We then have Copilot Studio, which kind of takes that a step further. You get access to a lot more capability, including things like triggers. And then we take that an even step further when you think of Azure AI Foundry. All of these things are kind of tied together in a very integrated way. So it's very easy to move from one to the other and incorporate one or the other in your solution. So I'd say our breadth of tool set is probably number one. Number two, I would probably talk about access to data. Any customer that's an M365 customer of Microsoft has an enormous amount of kind of that tacit knowledge, that data in Microsoft Graph. We make it very easy for you to get at that, to make your agents more intelligent. It's one thing to be able to run off rows and columns in a CRM database or ERP or F&O kind of service. It's something else when you can marry that with that tacit knowledge that you've got in your enterprise to bring intelligence, much more intelligence to what the agent can do. And then thirdly, I'd say our kind of core strength in security, governance, and compliance. We've invested heavily for a long time to help customers secure and manage their enterprise data. All of that investment flows through to your investment on the Microsoft stack for agents. Agents respect all of the policy, the labeling, all that kind of stuff that you've already deployed to manage your data. If you're building your agents on the Microsoft stack, that stuff just flows through. So I say these three things are probably the three primary.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so let's zoom in for just a moment. Help people understand, how do agent-powered interfaces change the way that workers interact with business systems compared to traditional user interfaces?
There is a lot going on in the industry with how kind of apps and agents are coming together in super interesting ways. I think over time we'll see agents starting to adopt some of the app modalities that we expect from apps today. So think of a time when an agent can actually start to build an app or even just a UI, like a form, on the fly for it to solve a business process or to help you move forward with whatever the thing is that you're working with the agent on. I think we're going to start to see that show up. It's not today, but over the course of time, I do think the app modality and the agent modality will start to mix. And ultimately, if you think about it, there's a very good reason for bringing those two things together. The example that I like to use is around a procurement process. Like every company has to buy stuff. Today, at Microsoft, you have to know 3 people, there's 3 different tools, a bunch of approval stuff happens. That could be the couple of apps you have to go use. That could be built into a series of agents and Copilot kind of marshalling the whole process. You could just literally ask Copilot, like, I need to open a PO for Foo. Copilot could know the agents that it needs to go talk to be able to do that. They could be a legal agent to check the statement of work that you're trying to kind of work through. There could be a procurement agent that could go make sure you've got access to the right and you're hiring the right vendors. Like every step of the way, Copilot could run that whole process. You don't necessarily need to go through 3 different tools. If Copilot needs some data from you, it could create a form if needed, if it's not a conversational type of thing that it's asking for. So you can see how these things start to really blend together when you start to think about agents working with other agents and then having something like Copilot kind of manage that interaction for you.
So I'm glad you brought up talking about different agents working across the business, and that's something we call orchestration. And one challenge enterprises face is orchestrating multiple agents across different domains, finance, HR, customer service, without chaos, integration, or security issues. How does Microsoft envision enabling agent orchestration across the enterprise, and what governance mechanisms will make it all work and safe?
That's a good question. So there are a couple of things that I don't think we're particularly unique in the industry with, like supporting MCP for agents to be able to use tooling, and supporting A to A for agents to talk to other agents. That's kind of table stakes these days. The thing where it starts to get interesting with Microsoft is our ability to use capabilities like Agent 365 to provide kind of end-to-end observability across all of the agents that you've got running in your organization, to the extent that you can even give an agent, an agent ID and treat it like a user. Things like conditional access, all that kind of stuff, just work. And then I also think, like, once you give organizations the ability to kind of observe and manage and govern agents, it starts to open up new kind of frontiers of where they can use agents. It allows them to think about business problems that they've had in the past that have historically been kind of unautomatable. Maybe they're too non-deterministic or too complicated to do with traditional automation tools, and apply agents to those problems. And we've seen a ton of customers kind of look at existing business processes and decompose them and figure out where they can replace certain parts of them with an agent. They don't replace the whole process, but they start to replace parts of that process. And over time, as the technology matures, as their understanding and confidence with the technology matures, they start to build out more, but also look at brand new problems that they've faced for a long time that have just been very difficult to address with technology. And that's when, if you kind of bring all of the assets together, the things like A2A and MCP, things like Agent 365, things like the security and governance and compliance capabilities that the Microsoft stack offers you, it really does let you start to look at these problems in a very different light and start to apply technology to things that you just previously wouldn't have tried to because it was too hard.
So let's talk about really getting started with agents. You've talked about agents being on a spectrum. How should organizations assess where they are and what kind of agents do they need? You talk to a lot of different customers and you have a good sense of that. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, totally. And there's no single answer to this because everybody's different. But I think it's important for people to start in a place they feel comfortable with. It's very easy to run into this too fast, not be super successful, and then feel a little bit terrified for trying to scale it. So it's actually very similar as well to the way that people in the past, over the past 6, 7, 8 years, have deployed low code. The deployment patterns that we see with things like Power Apps are very similar to the customers that we see deploying, agents in any meaningful way. And actually, the customers that have already deployed low code at scale seem to have a very familiar pattern to follow with how they deploy agents. So it really does fall into that: pick a business process. Maybe just pick one. Find the one that's the most inefficient, the most expensive, the most painful. It's creating the most work, and then break it down decompose it into its component parts, and start to figure out where you could apply agent technology to those component parts. Don't try and replace the whole thing. And I've had many conversations with customers where they think, I'm just going to replace my whole procurement process or my whole, hiring, recruitment process with an agent. Now that may be possible, but it's really difficult. So basically, figure out what that recruitment process looks like and break it down, and then attack it in chunks. And then you'll learn what the technology is capable of. You'll learn what your teams are capable of. And as both mature, you'll be able to expand it within that process and expand it outside of those to other processes as well. So it really is a journey, and most people will find their own way through it. We have a ton of best practices, guidance, patterns and practices, that kind of thing, and templates that we can share. But ultimately, every customer is different, and everyone's going to look at this differently and figure out which is the best place to start.
So when we talk about agentic business transformation, we see a lot of organizations are trying to figure out, well, how does this fit into my legacy systems, the architecture I have today? What thoughts do you have about how do we bridge that gap between the modern agent stack and legacy IT?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. The first one would be find ways to integrate. Like MCP is a perfect way. The rate of adoption for MCP has been phenomenal. So go learn about that. Go figure out like how you could stick an MCP server in front of the services that you want to expose to your agents. That's step one. And then step two is if you already have, deterministic workflows, which I'm certain everybody does, there are ways you can start to pull those into things like Copilot Studio. Keep them deterministic, but build them as agents. And that's one of the great value props of Copilot Studio is you can blend this kind of non-deterministic AI agent-driven approach to workflow with very deterministic with things like agent flows. So you can actually replicate what you've got in an agent, and then over time, you can start to create, replace parts of it. So it's more like AI agent-driven than deterministic. So there's lots of ways you can start to bring these two worlds together without kind of diving in or not.
Agents will become the core logic and decision-making layer in business processes soon enough. How does agents as the new logic layer change the way that enterprises think about their core systems? What are the implications there?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a meaningful change with how people interact with core line of business systems like ERP, like CRM. Traditionally today, this is kind of a forms over data type web experience. You have to go somewhere, fill a bunch of forms in, input a bunch of data, and press submit. I think fairly soon that there'll be kind of an inversion of where the IP and the logic sits. It will be less on the database and forms layer. It will be much more on the agent layer. And what that means for users is they're going to get faster access to data. They're going to get smarter answers. They're going to be able to use multiple data sources to assess a certain situation. If you're a seller, why am I sending you to our our customer service solution plus your CRM to go figure out with the customer you're about to meet whether they've got any open support tickets and they're angry at with you? Like that it should just be able to ask an agent to be able to do that. If you're a salesperson and you just got off the phone with a customer, maybe the call's transcribed, maybe there's a bunch of email traffic between you. Why am I making you go repeat that, cut and paste it, make it up again, and submit it into a CRM system somewhere? An agent should just be able to do that. So I think there's going to be that switch from people laboring away in web forms and web services to an agent proactively in many cases working with these systems and helping the salesperson or the service person or whoever else it is to get more done and be way more productive.
So how are agents enabling organizations to leapfrog traditional low-code development and go straight to intelligent orchestration?
So I'll give you a few examples. The first one is, I wouldn't exactly say leapfrogging. I would say we're using agents to make that kind of low-code paradigm even stronger. So things like the ability to use plans in Power Apps, where gone are the days where you're trying to describe an app and build an app. What you do is describe a business process. And then Power Apps plans can use several agents. There's an architecture agent, there's a data agent, and it can actually go build a business solution for you. And that business solution could be 2 or 3 apps, some workflows, a couple of agents. It'll actually do the end-to-end thinking. Like if you were a business architect, what would you build versus just building an app? So that's number one. We're leveraging agents to help you build kind of better low-code solutions. And then number two, we have new capabilities in M365 Copilot, like Workflow Builder and App Builder, where someone with absolutely zero coding experience can come and literally describe an agent or a workflow. An App Builder and Workflow Builder will go build it for you and run it. And then it can store persistent data in SharePoint. You can share that with other people. You can even start to modify it. So if it's not exactly what you want the first time you kind of describe the app, you can modify and change it as much as you want conversationally. And that really does open the door to many more people being able to kind of use this technology. These aren't going to be apps that you end up running your business on. They can help a team, an individual achieve more, be more productive using AI to build apps, things like apps and
So what we're seeing as companies plan for the role of the maker evolving, where that maker has really been that low-code developer who's been using things like Power Apps to build point solutions in their corner of the organization. What we're seeing is that role is growing up, and it's becoming one that's going to take advantage of this, of all these intelligent agents that are being built inside the organization, and now they can build new solutions that span departments and cross silos in terms of the business processes that they can integrate. And so creating higher order, more strategic solutions out of that agent landscape that's forming. And these are things that now will automate and run on their own. But is that we see that maker still has a role, and in fact, an even more important one. I was wondering what you thought about that.
Yeah, it's a really important point. I also think IT are going to play a very important role in this as well. They'll be the ones building the MCP servers, so they can provide access to data and logic to business units that want to go build their own agents. They'll be the ones that are building the kind of high order bit agents so that business users can take advantage of those. So I think when you bring those two things together, you definitely create a total is great in some of the parts type math for customers.
So in this new world of agents, where it's the code, the AI is touching your business and your data, the concern is around compliance and security. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to how does Microsoft ensure that these very powerful agents that are working with your business are following the rules and are secure?
Yeah, it comes up a lot in conversations that I have. The thing to remember, though, is agents only have access to the data that you give them access to. They also respect all of the policy, all of the governance controls that you've got over the data. They only get access to it if they are granted access to it. And I think that's fairly unique to the Microsoft stack in the sense that all of the investments that you've made on things like Purview and managing SharePoint, that kind of stuff, that all just flows through to agents. When you go outside of the Microsoft stack, you essentially have to kind of copy paste that data somewhere. And at that point, you lose all of that governance control that you once had when it was in the kind of your M365 security boundary. So it's a super important point, and one where I think we have a fairly meaningful differentiator for customers. Everything just works. I think it's fairly just pretty much as simple as that.
And so thanks so much for being here, Richard. It was great to talk with you.
Thanks, Theon. Yeah, it was a really fun conversation. I appreciate your time.
So what was really interesting to me is seeing how far Microsoft has come so quickly with agents. We see this as a whole new stack that's forming inside the organization. It was really fascinating to hear that you're spending so much time looking at how do I make agents work across the business. I think we've looked at a lot of individual automation in the past and low code, but I think it's understanding that Microsoft has that big picture view, and it's the breadth of the tooling. It's the scope of understanding it's not just departmental. Of course it's departmental, but it's also how do we make this enterprise wide, and how do we elevate the thinking so that we're preparing those inside of our organization to take advantage of the big shift that's happening, going from building maybe those point low code applications to orchestrating across the business, and a lot of the pieces around making agents work together, providing that security and compliance that ensures that you can do all of this safely and not constantly sweating. Am I going to go outside the security boundaries? Am I going to go against corporate policy? And knowing that all your agents can do that. It really is gratifying to see how far Microsoft has come in assembling this vision, and then offering it in, it's no one can say this is mature yet, but hearing about how the stories we see at your events about how far the customers are coming and already getting a lot of these things out there. So that was the takeaway I had, is just getting a sense that Microsoft is really trying to make sure that they're leading this agentic transformation.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to our next session in this year's Predict 2026. You know, it is the year of AI. It's our person of the year. So expect to hear a lot about it in every session we do. But this session should be a great one. And I'm glad you joined in to watch it. Our guest for this session is Alex Smith. Alex is the Vice President and Practice Lead for Ecosystems, Channels, and Marketplaces at Futurum Group. In our continuing spotlight on the Futurum analyst predictions for this year, let's welcome him. Alex, thank you for coming on to Predict 2026 this year to share your outlook and your predictions for the year with us.
Hey, my pleasure, Alan. My first time at the event, and happy to contribute my thoughts and ideas and hopefully make it a good one.
I'm sure it will be, and I'm glad first time, long time, but Alex, you're not new to predictions and you're not new to the analyst game, right? And you really specialize in marketplaces, and overall, your overarching theme this year is marketplaces will help us unlock agentic commerce. We're going to dive into that. But before we go into next year, let's look at last year. Even though you weren't here on Predict, you did make some predictions last year. Might have done one of the videos that our video team had worked on and stuff. Last year, your predictions really were centered on the cloud marketplaces. If you wouldn't mind, for our listeners and viewers, give us a recap of what you thought last year was.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, cloud marketplaces have been around for a long time, well over a decade. If you look at, when Salesforce App Exchange came onto the scene, for example, or AWS Cloud Marketplace. But it's been I would say a slow burn, a sector that first generated interest, but really over the last couple of years, we've started to see a lot of momentum. And my central prediction last year was that cloud marketplaces would kind of evolve from becoming a bit of a niche procurement tool and go-to-market mechanism to one that's actually as important for the software industry as we've seen traditional distributors be for the commercial hardware space. And I think that expectation was kind of underpinned by three factors. One, over the last few years, we've seen marketplace fees come down to where they were originally double-digit percentage points, now coming down to low 3% as a standard, even lower in some cases, depending on the nature of some deals. And really, when you look at that from a fee standpoint, it's kind of similar to what you see in traditional distribution. It's becoming a cost-effective route to market. So that was one. The other is the growth of cloud commits. Right, these are commitments that enterprises have with the hyperscalers, and part of that commitment can be used to spend on software products that exist within cloud marketplaces. So what you have here is a ready-made economy of dollars that can be committed to spending on products that exist on the cloud marketplace. So that's another critical, important driver. And then the third is the notion and maturation of private offer programs, where these are mechanisms by which either directly or indirectly buyers can negotiate pricing agreements on cloud marketplaces on the software they buy. And at the end of the day, enterprise buying is a negotiation game, and you want to be able to do that in the digital mechanism as well. And so the rise of private offer programs was also an important factor to making cloud marketplaces an important route to market. So these three drivers really is really making the cloud marketplace a much more mature route to market for software companies overall.
Absolutely. So Alex, hindsight's always 2020, of course, right? But as you sit here in 2026, looking back at 2025, did it unfold the way you thought? How do you think your predictions went?
I think pretty well, Alan. I think pretty well. I mean, I think, this, the prediction was not so much one about like 2025. marketplaces getting to that level in terms of share of market per se, but more of a direction of travel. And I think 2025 was absolutely showed us that it was a breakout year, and the direction of travel is absolutely spot on. At Futurum, we estimate that marketplace associated revenue has surpassed $21 billion in 2025. And, we're seeing that acceleration continue we're forecasting north of $41 billion by 2029. And again, that's revenue, soft revenue of ISVs that are going through marketplaces. And there's plenty of companies that have, announced results. AWS Marketplace is absolutely the bellwether in this space, and they've announced there's been around 9 or so companies that have seen north of $1 billion in sales, right? That's transactions go through the marketplace, and there's others. Google Cloud as well has some announcements on its own. But even beyond the actual numbers, you're seeing, we saw lots of evolutions happen in marketplace. We saw Salesforce App Exchange make a number of announcements towards the tail end of the year where, it's going to, despite being one of the early entrants into this space, it in some ways still needs to evolve its platform to really drive some more of that kind of commercial commerce capabilities. And they've made a number of announcements around their intentions as to how they're going to evolve their App Exchange. Microsoft restructured their previously disparate AppSource and Azure marketplaces into one single Microsoft marketplace. And then you're seeing companies like CrowdStrike and Snowflake and ServiceNow that all have their own marketplaces as well, who are investing heavily in this space. So I think absolutely 2025, I would say, was a breakout year for cloud marketplaces overall.
I don't disagree. Alex, to put it in perspective, 9 unicorns, $9 billion, at least north of $1 billion vendors out of the Amazon marketplace. I don't know off the top of my head, but what percentage of total revenue to AWS is that?
Well, I think the way you have to look at it is when a company, say CrowdStrike, for example, being one of the ones that really kind of almost rubber stamped this kind of $1 billion club that now a lot of ISVs and actually partners are trying to be a part of. And so for them, I think there's a couple important things to note on that. First, the numbers that they usually talk about is total contract value, right? So when they do when they announce $1 billion in total contract value, many of these contracts are multi-year engagements, right? So it could be 3-4 years of total contract value that make up that $1 billion number. So I think it's important to distinguish the kind of the sales versus actual revenue attribution. I think the other important thing to recognize too is when a marketplace acts as the channel for these ISVs. In some cases, it's the the designated seller. In other cases, it's acting as an agent, whereby it's only then from a revenue rec side of things, I believe, able to recognize the fees associated with that rather than the actual revenue sale. All that is to say that this is not so much a statement of what it's doing to AWS's top line per se, but ultimately what all these marketplaces will drive is underlying spend on their own services, right? If you look at an ISV that is selling through an AWS marketplace, a lot of their technology stack is actually running on AWS itself, right? So the more that the ISV is driving of its own platform into the market, the more that it's then ultimately spending and consuming AWS, instances, infrastructure, all the associated services, et cetera. So the real economic model is, how that kind of flywheel drives more usage of the AWS underlying infrastructure itself, rather than purely the fees that it generates as a transaction agent.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
I think that was a good description and explanation. Alex, the theme for Predict 2026 is, of course, AI. It's the person of the year.
Mm-hmm.
When we look back at what was like the biggest impact on marketplaces over the last year, was it AI, or did AI play into that, or was there something else bigger than AI?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've done pretty well so far, Alan, getting pretty far into this conversation without kind of diving into AI. But
right, yeah, no, you're right. 10, 12 minutes in, that's impressive.
Yeah, especially in this day and age. But absolutely, AI is critical to the world of marketplaces, as it really is to everything else that we see in tech. And I would say that's actually there's two aspects to that. The first is agentic AI itself becoming a new category within these cloud marketplaces, right? And if you look, all the major cloud marketplaces launched either a dedicated agentic AI section in their marketplace, or in some cases spun out a separate site portal for identifying and deploying agents. And it kind of led to a mid-year prediction that we had that the marketplaces would become the predominant route to market for agentic AI. And again, the reason is, in this world of agentic AI, we're going to see thousands of sprawling of these, small individual digital assets, tools, et cetera. And the only way to really deploy these at scale with the different consumption/revenue or monetization models that all of these will have, the ability to interconnect agents with one another, is through a digital platform, right? This is not going to be a traditional, PO procurement kind of sale. Companies want to be able to deploy these fast, consume them fast, monitor the usage, do it all in an interoperable environment. And I think marketplaces really will be at the nexus of how companies manage and deploy agents throughout their environment. So that I would say is the first way in which agentic AI kind of became part of the marketplace story, right, as a route to market. The second is actually, I think, kind of manifested more towards the latter part of the year, and that's how marketplaces themselves, or rather, how buyers themselves would start to engage with marketplaces. And you saw that through some of the announcements that, for example, AWS made it its last reInvent just last month in agent mode. And this is really I think, just the way in which software will change going forward in terms of how we will engage with our software tools using natural language search or natural language context, right? And so what you're starting to see now is capabilities where you can either search, do discovery, do research on solutions on marketplaces through natural language search. You can upload your own RFP documents to say, hey, this is kind of what we're looking for. Help us identify the right solutions to deploy based on our own requirements. You could do this within the marketplace interfaces themselves, or in some cases, if they are connecting out to your favorite chatbot like a Claude or OpenAI or whatnot. So increasingly, you're going to see that engagement happening within those environments. And so really, it's the second way is agentic AI is changing the way in which I think procurement and buyers are going to engage with marketplaces. And I think that's going to have, just impacts of how we're doing digital buying and digital commerce for years to come.
I love it. Alex, the title of your sessions is Marketplaces Will Help Unlock Agentic Commerce. Mm-hmm. And I think we're kind of nibbling at the edges right now, but let's really dive in and take a mouthful, okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When we talk about agentic commerce, how would you define that?
I think agentic commerce, still to be defined, but agentic commerce will be when we have agents that are trusted and authorized to conduct buying on behalf of an enterprise's requirements and needs, and have the governance to do so without a significant amount of or with a limited amount of oversight. And on the sell side, that we will have agents that then also are able to engage with those buying agents and be able to match the right solutions, hit the authorize certain price points, and ultimately transact based on coming to agreement with the buyer. And so really it's kind of a matching of both agentic models on the buy side, agentic models on the sell side, to come to agreement to deploy solutions at scale. And this will have to be done through kind of context aware and kind of a sense of governance and authority on both sides of the equation. And I think this will happen at scale. It'll happen quickly, and I think there's just going to be more, I guess, intelligence that are built into these systems to be able to kind of get to the right deployment outcome that both sides of the equation are looking for. And I think in order to get there, on the sell side, to me, it seems pretty clear that the marketplaces will become a critical nexus point there, right? They already have the mechanisms to, as we've already seen, they already have catalogs of thousands of software products. They have the ability to discover these software products, the ability to see reviews and ratings and how they compare with different options on the market. They have pricing capabilities built into it, so that whether you are deploying a usage-based pricing, a per-user pricing, a negotiated type of pricing, all those mechanisms are part of marketplace capabilities already. And then, as we talked about in some of the announcements last year, just that discoverability and the intelligence to kind of match the solution with what a buyer is looking for in their own environment. So you have a lot of the constructs already in the marketplace to be able to kind of do this at scale. And then the question is, when will this start to happen, more without human touch, right? When will it happen through agents that are happening, that might be deployed on the buy side to say, hey, here's our requirements, go and find the best solution, and you are authorized to deploy it under these considerations. That, I think, is still some, ways away for sure. But at least on the sell side of things, cloud marketplaces are well positioned to be at the nexus of agentic commerce.
Excellent. I want to maybe a little out of left field here, Alex. I've done a lot of things in my career. I've run sales teams, marketings, run companies, been a chief strategy officer, biz dev, corp dev. In a lot of situations, there was always friction between, should we have a direct sales force? Should we have a channel sales force? Mm-hmm. And a lot of companies, as they matured, they went to a channel-only sale, mm-hmm. a channel-only model, right? Where because, you have a decent enough channel, it's the force multiplier, it makes sense. Do you think we're at a place where ISVs, and a lot of ISVs out here watching this, a marketplace only strategy? What do you think about that?
I've spoken to a couple of ISVs who have taken that approach. Certainly a marketplace first strategy.
Okay.
And there are ISVs big and small that are really leaning into this as a go-to-market. I spoke with as an individual contact of mine who works for an ISV who I just saw on LinkedIn this week, participated in their sales kickoff main stage, and he's responsible for driving marketplace sales through their business, but it's really evangelizing. He was their SKO to evangelize the sales force to really lean into marketplace as a critical route to market. What I would say though is, if I go back to kind of the opening kind of prediction or last year's prediction, and one of those factors that's driving marketplace sales was the embracement of private offers and the ability to, negotiate via marketplaces on pricing and things like that. Because you're a sales guy, that negotiation is never going to go away in the
no, it's part of it.
Yeah,
some people live for that.
Absolutely, people live for that. But like, there's always going to be considerations and pricing and ultimate deal execution, and I think that's going to be the same in marketplaces. But what I was going to say is, I remember having the same debate with actually an exec at Red Hat about 7 years ago. And at the time, I was more of a skeptic on marketplaces. I thought, no, enterprise software selling is too complex. It's always going to require, boots on the ground, people in the room to kind of get it done. And in many cases, either whether it's a direct sales force or indirect channel sales force, marketplaces can't replace that. Red Hat, was, or at least this exec rather, was kind of taking the opposite stance. Red Hat had its own marketplace, and in fact, it shuttered its marketplace last year. Might be one of the tales of this industry not working out. But what I would say we were both right. And one of the big changes was partners became a big part of marketplace motions in that time between, in the last 6 years, the debate that I had then and now. And if you look somewhere, if you take AWS as a gold standard, roughly somewhere between 30 and 40% of AWS marketplace transactions have a third-party partner involved, right? So we are seeing marketplaces become an and to traditional sales motions rather than an or. And so even in these cases where, as you posited, an ISV that might want to go marketplace first as their strategy, I think that's certainly going to be plausible for some ISVs out there. But even in those cases, I think they're still going to want to have a partner, a channel partner ecosystem that is there at the front lines with the customer, either managing their kind of marketplace transactions, servicing it from a professional services side of things, being that implementation and or advisory expert. So I think there is absolutely a way for these worlds to coexist. It's just a case of marketplace being increasingly that actual transaction mechanism for the actual kind of deployment and also some of the discoverability and whatnot as well. But people aren't going to go out of business. I don't expect.
Well, we have enough things challenging people's works and business, jobs and businesses. Alex, I've got time for one more, but it's really the heart of it. So here we are at Predict 2026. If I ask everything we've just discussed, tie it all up into what's your main prediction in your area of expertise for 2026?
So I would say that the road to agentic commerce has truly begun, and that companies that have cloud marketplaces will be at the nexus of that. This is, if we expect digital buying to really start to manifest in the enterprise and to be done agentically at scale, then more still has to happen to be codified on the buyer side. But on the sell side, marketplaces will be the primary mechanism where that interface happens. And there are already front runners in this space who have established leading positions in terms of maturity and presence in the market. But I expect we will see more marketplaces evolve and more challengers to the status quo. So there's probably more than one kind of single thing there. But again, if I were to boil it down to one line, is that the road to agentic commerce has begun. Cloud marketplaces will be at the nexus of that.
Fantastic. So Alex, now that you've done this once, when you come back next year, we'll have a record for you to run against. So, you've been marked in here. Alex, thank you so much for contributing to this year's Predict 2026. We appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this. We have so much more coming your way at Predict 2026. We have it virtually the entire Futurum analyst team with their predictions, and just so much there, including, if you haven't had a chance, go check out Daniel Newman's keynote. Alex, thank you. Thank you for watching. This is Predict 2026.